let's go ahead to the trade plan there. As you can see, we have U.S. housing starts coming out. So as you know, the housing market is extremely important for the U.S. dollar and for the U.S. economy. Why? Simply because the housing market is usually directly proportional to U.S. recessions. When the housing market is not doing well, usually U.S. goes into recession. When the housing market is doing well, that usually means that the U.S. economy is doing well and there is no recession. Even in 2001, when we had this big stock market crash, the technological bubble burst, because the housing was doing so well, it pulled out the economy very quickly out of a situation that could have been a lot worse. So housing market is crucial, and we have several different indicators, giving us some hints on what the housing market does. One of those indicators is U.S. housing starts, and it's one of the more important ones. Basically, a housing start is considered as soon as a builder starts excavating the ground in order to put concrete. So as soon as that, a tractor or shovel or whatever you call it hits the ground and, the first scoop is taken out, it's considered a housing start. Now, of course, before they can do that, the builders, they usually have to get a building permit from the city. And we conveniently have building permits coming out at the same time as well. Now, obviously, housing starts is lagging behind building permits a little bit. Both numbers are coming out for April. However, obviously, a building permit can be issued 1 month, and then the housing start may only start the next month. So just keep that in mind. But housing starts in itself is a much more important indicator, because many times building permits can be received, but if no activity is happening, no actual physical activity, there's going to be no house built. One of the reasons housing starts is so important is because it supports so many aspects of the economy. It heavily supports the manufacturing sector, because obviously a lot of the materials for houses has to be bought locally, like concrete and all that stuff. And building materials, you don't really, many times it's not really worth importing that stuff from Asia. It's just cheaper to produce it and buy it locally. At the same time, obviously, it's providing a lot of jobs to contractors and all that. And at the same time, if the builders are building, and that means that they are confident about the housing market. If the builders stop building and the housing starts go down, that usually means that the economy is slowing and they're having no confidence. And talking about confidence, yesterday at I believe it was 1 p.m. New York time, we had an AHB housing market index coming out of the U.S. and that index came out at 30. To give you an idea, that index is very similar to Chicago PMI, the way it's calculated, and a reading of 50 usually, shows an equivalent of people that are optimistic about the housing market and the ones that are pessimistic. When the reading is as low as 30, that means most people are pessimistic about the housing market, most builders. And actually, the only time the reading was at 30 or below was back in 1991, when the U.S. was in a very deep housing shit, so to speak. And then we saw 30 again in September of 2006, and it came out 30 again yesterday, but that was for the months of May. Then the mortgage applications came out at negative 0.8% versus 3.6% back in April. So bottom line is, everything is showing towards very slow housing and a dying housing market. The lenders, a lot of subprime lenders are going out of business. The foreclosures rate this April in 2007 versus April of 2006 has increased by 70%. That means in April of 2007 there is 70% more foreclosures than there were in 2006, and it's only looking to get worse. it seems like it's still spiraling down, and most people and most builders are very pessimistic and are losing a lot of money. And basically, with the under all these circumstances, we are expecting housing starts to come out at 1,480,000, basically 1480K versus 1518K previous months. My triggers, as you can see, are pretty exact here, and there's a reason for that. For the regular 10 pips limit triggers, I have plus 154 for a possible sell on GBP USD, because obviously the higher the number, the better it is for the dollar, because the better, that means the better the housing is doing. And the reason I have exactly 154 is that if the deviation is at plus 154, that would mean that the actual reading is at actually 1634, and if that's the case, it would be the highest reading since, let me see my notes here, it would be the highest reading since December of 2006. Back in December of 2006, the reading was at 1633. So actually, in fact, that would be the highest reading since September of 2006. So a deviation of such would be the highest in the last 7 months. So I think that would be bullish for the US dollar, because in the last 7 months, the housing market has declined. And if all of a sudden we see this crazy deviation to the upper side, it would be a big surprise. On the other hand, my lower trigger is minus 181. So if the actual reading comes out at 1199, well, actually not 1199, 1299, or more negative, the 1200s is a very psychologically low reading. As I said, we've never seen such low reading in the 2000s, and the lowest it read was at 1399. So we've seen the market being in the 1300s. If it falls below to 1200s, I think the GBP USD will recover, especially considering that it's at a pretty nice level right now, 1920. On the conservative triggers and the regular triggers, I'll be using 10 pips limits, because even though the housing is important, many times it doesn't really move the market that much. It may only move by 30 or 40 pips, and if there's a conflict on building permits, there may be a retracement. So I don't want to, get in at too bad of a price. On the conservative triggers, plus 320 would signify a reading of 1800, which would be huge. It would be the highest reading since June of 2006, and a very big jump. So GBP USD may possibly go down by 50 pips or more. Or if the reading is at minus 380, or the actual number at 1100 or lower, it would be pretty bad. So I think the GBP USD will probably gain 50 pips or more. So I'm willing to use conservative 20 pips limit triggers for those. Okay, we are coming up to about 3 minutes until the report. Let me go ahead and I'm going to be using the bounds on a Wanda of about 5 pips there for the regular triggers. $20 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 'Okay, no trade, came out higher than expected, but the building permits came out significantly lower. So the housing starts came out at 1528 versus 1480, while the prior number was revised from 1518 to 1491. However, the building permits came out at 1429 versus 1520, and the prior number was revised from 1544 to 1569. Obviously, guys, this is too many conflicts. I mean, basically, we have a better than expected housing starts, and then a conflicting revision. Then we have building permits conflicting to the housing starts, and then it also has a conflicting revision.